Hello YouTubers and welcome to Nick DK Online. My name is Nick Ventura and you're watching all we know about the Elder Scrolls Online. Hello tubers, we are back with more Elder Scrolls Online. But today will be a little different and I will give the lore stories a day off. Today we talk about game mechanics like graphics, PvP, PvE and combat. We don't have endless amounts of info about the game yet, but I will update the mechanics videos whenever we get new info. Till then I will continue with the lore and background stories. In part 2 of this series I gave you an idea of the land masses that ZeniMax is pulling together. They are creating a game that contains areas from games made over the past 20 years, with different graphics and art styles. So, you can now imagine the problems ZeniMax was facing. What style should we go with, because they wanted the player to feel at home when going to Morrowind, Cyrodiil or Skyrim. ZeniMax decided to go with a stylized look. This is a term that is used more and more in the MMO development universe. But it's not always a question about having high poly models, but also a question about high definition textures and an art team that are good at placing and designing the game world. Matt Fyra from ZeniMax stated that their goal is to have more than 200 players on screen in the PvP battles. So without a doubt, a compromise must be made. But with that said, I am very positive. I am personally a graphics buff, and you can throw the best gameplay at my face, but if the graphics constantly annoy me, I will lose interest in the game fast. But hey, that's just me. A lot of MMO gamers play for the PvE or PvP, but thank God we're all different. But what compromises have they made? When looking at the game world, I personally think it's beautiful. There are so many details and everything looks crisp and clear. And what we have seen of Skyrim in the Elder Scrolls Online look, well, like the Skyrim we know. Matt Fyra stated that the compromises was made in the characters, because they are the ones that will increase in numbers on different occasions. And no, of course they don't look like characters from Skyrim, but comparing them to other MMOs, I would say that they look pretty cool. Plus we know that the characters we have been seeing at this point are all from the pre-alpha videos, and ZeniMax has stated that these characters will change. The game engine is also specifically made for the Elder Scrolls Online, so we know they don't have to make any compromises in that area. Don't know much about the system requirement at this point, but we can give pretty precise speculation, because they say that they want the game to run on a 5-year-old system. So we can conclude that a 5-year-old gaming spec is the minimum requirement, so that is easy to look up. And what we should focus on here is the graphic cards, the RAM and the CPU. And when talking about requirement specs for the game, we are probably looking at a system with cards like Nvidia GTX 580 and up, and about 4 gigs of RAM. I don't expect to see anything higher than this because of the stylized look. But feel free to speculate all you want in the comment section below. But I can talk about the graphics all day, but the best way for you to decide is by taking a walk through Tamriel. So let's take a walk. So we can conclude that the game looks gorgeous, and the testers that have played the alpha game will also tell you that it's beautiful and even looks better than what we've seen in the released footage at this point. But one thing is the looks, another is the gameplay, so let's talk about the combat in the Elder Scrolls. After over 15 years of MMO gaming, I have tried a lot of different combat systems, and very little set them apart. Yes, a few MMOs have some extra features that make you block, dodge, or swing your weapon in different directions, but one thing is always the same. You have tons of quick bars and your UI is filled with buttons and gauges. In the last few years, MMOs have tried to steer away from this system. A good example is Guild Wars 2. There are a few things that will help you understand the Elder Scrolls Online system if you have actually played Guild Wars. Now, the main reason that the combat system is set up as it is in Elder Scrolls Online is the earlier games. Yes, this is an online game, but most and foremost, it's an Elder Scrolls game. ZeniMax wanted to make an online Elder Scrolls game, not an MMO as such. New rules has to be set, so how do you pull in the Elder Scrolls combat system to an online universe? First, ZeniMax is taking the absolutely main parts of the single-player combat system in the Elder Scrolls Online. You left-click to swing your sword and you fire your spell, and you right-click to block with your sword or shield or use your secondary. Holding right mouse button engages active blocking mode, intercepting incoming blows at the cost of stamina, while blocking a left click executes a shield or a weapon's bash, interrupting enemy spellcasting or breaking free of crowd control effects. Also, it is confirmed that holding down your mouse button will charge up a power attack, just like you do in the earlier single-player games. It is also confirmed that a double tap of the WASD keys will let you dodge. This much resembles what we know from Guild Wars 2 system. All this is possible because the combat in the Elder Scrolls Online is real time. You react to your surroundings and you learn to fight with the tools at hand. To pull in some special moves like in other online games there is a hotbar, but this is not one of these 20-slot quickbar systems. No, in your hotbar you only have 6 slots. But the cool thing about this bar is that it is not controlled by cooldowns. Again, they pull in a main part of the single-player games, and they add health, stamina and magicka. In order to enhance the action combat feel, combat focuses around the opportunistic use of stamina bar, which allows the player to sprint, block, interrupt and escape crowd control. By selectively using these strategic abilities, combat in the Elder Scrolls Online feels dynamic in comparison to turn-based fundamentals, which are a critical design to MMOs. The first 5 abilities in your hotbar are chosen from the class pool and weapons you wield. These abilities has no cooldown but cost either stamina or magicka to activate. Each ability is designed to have a substantial impact on combat, so the selective use of when and how to use these skills play a major role in your combat success. The final slot, the 6th key in your hotbar, for every class is filled by an ultimate ability, which is usable after the player accumulates sufficient finesse, which is a resource mechanic that builds through successful performance in combat. Every class has multiple ultimate abilities to choose from, but may only utilize one at a time. Finesse is awarded for combat success, like interrupting an enemy spellcast or blocking a dangerous attack. Groups can rapidly accumulate finesse by performing attack combos that use synergy abilities to produce a special effect. Completing an encounter with high finesse yields additional rewards, ranging from a small experience boost to additional magical loot. When you first slot a new ability in your hotbar, you only possess a novice level of skill using it. As you gain expertise in your abilities, you can improve and enhance them in various ways. So, like the single player games, you get better at something by using it. So, swing that sword, people. When out of combat, you can change hotbar abilities as you like, and this will help you find your own playstyle. Also, you may find that one setup works better for you in PvP than another setup which you use in raids or PvE. The R key is a quick potion slot where you can place healing or magicka potions or other boosts. They are controlled by a small 20 to 30 second cooldown to avoid spamming in combat. Out of combat, you can buff yourself like the single player games by eating food or drinking your favorite draughts. Players are encouraged to work together in a form of synergy effects. A mage may plant a fire trap, and when shooting arrows through it, your arrows will do fire damage. These cross-class combos opportunities will prompt visual cues on screen to help parties effectively combine powers. The NPC enemies are programmed to act more like players, so they will also read their surroundings and take action accordingly. So a battle will play out differently if you are two ranged mages, or a warrior and a ranger. Plus, it will help players feel more at home in PvP and vice versa. So, let's look at the PvP system. The drums of war have reached a fever pitch, calling the warriors of Tamriel to the field of battle. The Daggerfall Covenant, the Ebonheart Pact, and the Altmerry Dominion will take up arms and fight for control of Cyrodiil, the Imperial City, and the throne of Tamriel. Featuring three-sided player versus player gameplay, the Elder Scrolls Online supports hundreds of players on screen at once in an open-world fight for control of Cyrodiil. Seize, hold and control the resources of massive strongholds. Utilize massive siege weapons to crumble fortress walls and smash through fortified gates. Conquer the Imperial City, and your alliance top player could even be crowned Emperor. The three alliances do battle in the region of Cyrodiil, seeking to control the Imperial City, and with it the Ruby Throne of Tamriel. Each alliance must wrest control of strategic territories from the others, including massive fortresses, each with supporting farms, lumber mills, and other valuable resources. Battles are concentrated around these resources and strongholds. Control of certain resources will extend the alliance influence in the region and help them take control of the Imperial City, and ultimately control of the Ruby Throne itself. Elder Scrolls are artifacts of immense power that aid an alliance in the ongoing battle to control Tamriel by conferring bonus to every member of the alliance. Each alliance has a special stronghold in Cyrodiil where the Elder Scrolls are kept and protected, but enemy alliances can break in and take them if they are not guarded properly. The battles for keeps and resources require more than the clash of steel. Alliances must use massive siege weapons to break down walls, smash open doors, and obliterate the armies of their opponents. Everything from trebuchets and catapults to ballistae and battering rams are available for players to capture and use, allowing them to demolish the stone walls of keeps and collapse massive gates to gain entrance to heavily defended strongholds. In the Elder Scrolls Online, the highest ranking player of an alliance is crowned Emperor when their alliance take control of the Imperial City. Emperors gain special abilities that increase their powers on the battlefield. They are true leaders of the alliance and a force to be reckoned with. An Emperor's hold on power can be tenuous. Can your alliance protect all of the strongholds necessary to maintain your dominance? How long will your reign as an emperor last before an ambitious foe cuts you down? In the Elder Scrolls Online, it is stated that PvP battles can take up to 200 players on the screen, so we can only imagine the size and the confusion of these epic battles. Without a doubt, PvP will be a main selling point of the Elder Scrolls Online. There are also a lot of players, especially single-player Elder Scrolls gamers, that will want to go on their own adventure and this takes us to the PvE of the Elder Scrolls Online. The world is split up into provinces, regions and zones. The in-game map will mark key locations, quests and places of interest. Many caves, ruins or dungeons will not become marked on the map until they are discovered by the player or described by an NPC. The map icons for various locations are familiar to players of Skyrim, donating caves, towns, shrines and more with their own identifying markers. A compass will help direct the player towards nearby towns, dungeons and players of interest. This feature is intended to preserve the feeling of traditional single-player Elder Scrolls experience. The compass is one of many UI elements which may be disabled if the player prefers old-school exploration. Elder Scrolls Online is designed to reward exploration with vignettes that are small events or challenges which are hidden off the beaten path around the world. Additionally, exploring will lead to discovery of additional quests, loot and possibly achievements throughout the world. Questing and story progression will revolve largely around hubless quest design, in order to preserve the sense of freedom, exploration and progression, which is an iconic feature of the Elder Scrolls. The game uses focal points of interest, which are self-contained adventure modules that players may encounter during their travels. Townsfolk will direct players towards nearby points of interest, but ZeniMax Online is trying to shy away from quest hubs and breadcrumb chains. Many NPCs can direct the player to the same quests, so the player can easily find nearby quests without needing floating exclamation marks or strategy guides. Many quests are simple bite-sized adventures, however there are also quest sagas which span entire zones and tell grand tales which reward segments of the overarching plotline of the game. While some quests are acquired from NPCs in major cities and towns, many quests can only be encountered through exploration. Quest givers are often near entries of a dungeon or other points of interest, where enterprising players can seek them out. Quest areas are phased, such that depending on a player's progress through the game's story arcs, he or she may experience a modified version of towns, dungeons and NPCs. In order to avoid many of the past pitfalls of phase content, ZeniMax Online is allowing any player who has previously completed a story arc to repeat the content with a friend. Quest rewards and public boss drops are individual specific and linked to the player's class. This is to encourage grouping without penalizing players by forcing them to distribute shared loot. Additionally, many quest objectives are automatically shared with nearby players in the world to encourage cooperation, even if players don't actually form a group. Furthermore, there are no kill lockouts. If you assist a fellow player in slaying monsters, both of you will receive experience and quest credits even if you are not grouped. ZeniMax wants to discourage competitiveness within one's own faction and encourage players to work together against a common foe. Almost all of the iconic opponents from previous Elder Scrolls games will be present in the Elder Scrolls Online, including Daedra, giants and mudcrabs. Each monster type has its own unique and distinct behavior. Dragons will not be featured in the MMO at launch, as they are not involved in the history of Tamriel at this time. Endgame PvE content will be periodically released in the form of adventure zones, which are dangerous and uncivilized regions of Tamriel, within which many dangers lurk. These adventure zones will feature content ranging from solo play to group encounters, and even additional raid content. The Elder Scrolls Online will also feature both public and instant dungeons. Public dungeons are not separated from the regular world via instancing, and allow for organic cooperation, grouping and even competitive between players. Instant dungeons also exist, which will deliver a more contained story-driven experience to a group of players. Public dungeons are excellent at providing spontaneous social experiences with new players to facilitate spontaneous group formation with fellow gamers. Most small public dungeons located throughout the world are balanced to be challenging for 1 to 5 players, where they will provide a significant challenge for solo players, but be comfortably clearable for a small group. Endgame PvE will feature heroic modes of each of the game's instance dungeons, which are more than simply more difficult versions of the same content. These heroic dungeons extend the story of a normal mode dungeon by adding a climactic and challenging endgame experience. In addition, the game has a large race that pit multiple groups of players against powerful and iconic bosses. There are a large number of public dungeons within Cyrodiil as well, which will combine exciting PvE storylines with the challenge and danger of encountering hostile player opposition within. In addition, Cinemax are working to develop a mega dungeon, reminiscent of Darkness Falls in Dark Age of Camelot, where access to this dungeon will depend on your faction's success in the Realm War. There are no separate itemization paths for PvE and PvE gear in The Elder Scrolls Online. Gear is useful in a universal context regardless of the means by which it is acquired. The Elder Scrolls Online they will have various tiers of powerful gear, some of which will be acquired through PvE, while other pieces will be acquired for PvP participation. In order to obtain the best possible equipment for your character, you will need to complete a mixture of all types of game content. Loot from PvE will be usable in PvP and vice versa. Closed beta is closing in and sign-ups have been opened the past month, so let's hope we get more info in the coming weeks from Cinemax. I will be updating all info I have and share it with you whenever it is released, but I will not go into speculation about The Elder Scrolls Online. There are loads of podcasts and Elder Scrolls Online shows out there that do a way better job at that than me, so I see no reason for me to attempt that. So the info you get in these mechanics videos may not be new to all of you, but the goal is to collect the info and share it with you in a hopefully entertaining way. If you are more of a lore lover, please go see part 1 and 2 of this series and subscribe for more videos, because I will be making some in-depth videos about the races of Tamriel, so you'll be able to learn the entire history of the character you decide to play. I will also be looking at the Divine and all the other planes of Mundus, which in common words are the Elder Scrolls Galaxy. So join me next time in all we know about the Elder Scrolls Online.